Hey, folks, welcome to the Beyond the Baselines podcast. I'm Ed Shanaphy, your host. And this week we've got a really special guest, a good friend of mine, Brett Gaede, live down there in Hillsboro, Florida at the Hillsboro Club. Hey, Brett, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Ed, appreciate you having me. It's great
Oh,
to
it's
see
great. It's great to have you. It's funny. We've known each other, for years. I don't get to see you that often because you're seasonal. You go up and down like I do. But tell us how you got into tennis. Did you play in high school? Did you play in college? That kind of thing. And did you teach then too?
I did. So I started tennis basically when I was, 4 or 5 years old. I was lucky enough to grow up about a mile down the road from the local rec center in Killington, Vermont. And my first clinic was ended up being a guy who ended up being my high school tennis coach, great guy named Jack Cullen. I got a lot of respect for Jack, and he was a great coach. And and ended up going to Colby Sawyer College, Division III school in New Hampshire. Played on the team there. We had a great team there. One of my teammates there was working at the Nantucket Yacht Club throughout our college summers. And when I was getting ready to graduate, I got a business degree and didn't really have anything lined up. And so they needed an additional pro out at the Nantucket Yacht Club.
Tough spot.
And
Tough spot to start, Brett. Tough
tough
spot.
spot. It was a really tough spot, Ed, but I made it work for 13 summers in a row.
That's
And
fantastic.
yeah, I got to work for a great guy out there named Hank Irvine and his wife Karen. And it was just a great way to start my career. And that's how I got started. And my first season there was 2002. But before
Okay.
that, I taught with Jack Cullen, my high school coach. I used to help him out with his summer camps up in Woodstock, Vermont. And that's really how I got started with it all.
Did you grew up in Killington? I didn't know that.
Yeah, Killington, Vermont, ski town.
Oh yeah, I spent a
Yeah,
lot of time in Killington. It's a good little ski mountain. I like the right side of the mountain.
it
That's
is.
straight
It
down.
is. It's
But
a great spot.
it
Beautiful
is a good
town.
spot. Tucket Yacht Club. So this is funny because you and I have gone through the industry and we've actually applied to the same jobs. I applied to New York, New York. See, I always get New York, NYYC, and NYC. I applied to Nantucket, and it was a few years ago. I had Olivia, so it was after 2002. I think you had left, but they called me. They wanted me, but and here we go, housing, right? They couldn't
Right.
house my family, so I said no. But it's such a lovely spot. But how do you find? So now here, let's tell the podcast listener what you do. You go up to Seal Harbor. You go to the
Right.
Harbor Club in Seal Harbor, Maine, which is absolutely stunning up there. And then in the winters, you come down to Hillsboro, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
And how's the housing work in Maine? Because it's not easy, is it?
It's not easy. When I first got there, they had housing for me, which was amazing because obviously I needed a place to live, and I basically lived in the attic of the club, which was a little rustic, but for me it worked out just fine. But I sort of got to and I was lucky to have local talented pros who could help me out in the summer. But I kept letting the committee know that eventually this local talent could run dry, and if you want to see the program go in the right direction, it'd be nice for me to be able to bring people in from anywhere. And so eventually they ended up finding me something that was a little bit more comfortable for me to live in just locally in Seal Harbor. And that allowed me to now have staff housing for I have two pros up there, two assistant pros who help me out during the summer, and they live above the main club. So that was a challenge, but it took a little while. But it
Mhm.
became very obvious to them that you're right. We're going to need to find a better option for both myself and to bring in some more talented pros and people who could be more consistent. Make sure that we had some available housing. So right now the club gets me a beautiful Airbnb. It's about 90 seconds from the club,
That's
and
fantastic.
fantastic. You can't beat it.
I know so here's my story. I lost my house I go to Marion, and I
Right.
lost my house there for this summer. I've been in the same house for 7 years. Unfortunately, a member who we won't say who, but is in need of housing has outbid me for the rental. So I'm outside of housing. So I have housing for my two or three pros.
Okay.
Um I found a house in the town, but again, as you said, it can always run dry, that kind of rental.
Well,
Um
he does
yeah,
know
so
that.
I wish, you take me through some of those conversations with the club, because you and I are in a similar position. We're in small clubs in the summer that are like destination in a little town. How did you educate the board to say, "Hey, I need this help. I can't find the help locally." What did you say to them?
Well, I told them, I said, basically, when I'm going out searching for new help and new assistants to come to Seal Harbor, the first two questions they ask me is they say, is there housing available? And do I get any sort of a meal plan? And if you say no, that's tough because I mean these are resort destination, beautiful, beautiful places that are highly sought after, and the places aren't cheap if you're going to rent. So you can't really bring somebody in who's going to spend every single dime that they make all summer just to live in a beautiful place. People want to come to work and they want to earn, work hard, but they want to earn so when they leave there, they have some money in their pocket. And if you're going there and you're working your butt off, which is obviously everyone's going to do in the seasonal business, you're going to want to have something when you leave. But what ends up happening is if you're paying that all to rent, they're going to say, thanks. It was a great summer. I really enjoyed myself, but I can't come back again. And then that's the issue, is then you don't have any continuity for the membership, and that really hurts. And so, eventually when they sort of see, they see it and they say, you know what, you're right. We need to make sure that we have a little bit more available. And they have to, a lot of clubs I've heard have gone out and bought, properties and converted them to more dorm-like living. And that's really sort of what you have to do, especially because these places become so, in such high demand, especially after COVID.
Correct. And the kids, and I call them kids because I'm old now, but the kids are tougher too because they want pictures of the housing before they show up. They want to see that where they're going to live. They want a meal plan is huge. We don't think about it, but a lot of times you have a dorm room, you don't have a kitchen, so you have to eat out, and that hits the pocket too. So housing is crucial. I'm glad we're talking about this so early on in the podcast here. In Florida, the club down there has housing for the staff, right? And you have a bunch of pros down there, right?
I do. I have, well, yeah, basically it's myself, and when we're in full peak season, I have 5 assistants. So there's 6 of us total. And three of them live on property full time. I have another person who comes in part time for the peak periods, but the club does provide a room for him. And they do pay, but it's a very minimal amount per month, and it's the best deal around. And they're so thrilled with it because it's right on property, and it's very convenient. So obviously the commute doesn't get any shorter than that. But
it means they're always on call. That's part of the
right. You're right. Pros and cons, exactly. That's the truth. But when they're on call, they might be, but a little bit, it's tough when it happens. But then at the end of the season, when all those on-call phone calls that you get, that money ends up adding up. So they do appreciate it.
That's great. And both clubs offer, and I want, part of the reason I have a podcast is to help mentor the boards of these clubs. Both of your clubs have a meal plan in some way for your pros. They feed the pros at points of time.
That's correct. Yes, down at Hillsboro, we're lucky enough to eat off the member buffet. I mean, that is we are spoiled every day.
That's fantastic.
They know that you're out here. It can be 90+ degrees, and they know that we're going to have a better afternoon, and our members are going to have a better experience if we can eat fresh off the salad bar, good healthy protein. And then we can, we feel just so much more fresh and ready for the afternoon. A lot of these places, they, and again, anything that they provide is always a benefit. Yep. But there's some that are better than others. I mean, when you're eating, fried food, and you got to go run around in the heat, and plus you're starving just because you're burning so many calories. So if you're loading up on chicken fingers, believe me, I do it every once in a while. But if you're doing it every day, it's going to be a tough afternoon out there when you have to be ready to go on the court.
Yeah. I remember the last job I had where I had a meal plan was Jupiter Island. You've worked there too.
Sure. Yeah.
And that canteen is fantastic. I mean, they built, and talk about future sites, long-term strategy planning. They built 2 or 3 those big long dormitories, which are beautiful. Right. Yeah. And then you just walk across the parking lot and there's a staff canteen there that is open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And it is, they do it, they do it at ski mountain lodges for the staff, and we're starting to get it for the golf and tennis staff too. So
yeah, it makes a huge difference. I mean, and that's where you can actually get to know the other staff members too, which when you're working in this kind of environment, it's so important. If you need something and you need to go to a different department, you meet those people when you're dining with them, and so, hey, I got to go to food and beverage and I got to ask for a favor, and I can walk in there and find this person that I've been getting friendly with in the dining hall. And then next thing you know, boom, it gets done, and it's just easier transition between departments.
Yep. Yeah, it's a good place. It's a good melting pot there inside the staff canteen. It is. Lots of different talents, lots of different nationalities, lots of different ideas being thrown around.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Hey, let's change gears a little bit. You
Sure.
do the seasonal thing. There's a bunch of us in the business that do it. Every
Right.
once in a while, I know you've had the urge, I've had the urge to look to go year round.
Sure.
Um, what excites you about the seasonal gig, and what doesn't excite you? But let's start with the excitement part.
Sure. Well, the excitement part is you get the excited to start the season. You get to roll into a place that's fresh. You haven't been there in however many months. You get to see the members that you've developed great relationships with over the years. You get to see the kids grow up. I mean, sometimes the kid's 12 years old and he looks like a kid, and you come back the next year and it's a grown man standing in front of you. Those are fun relationships to get to be a part of, and meet these people. And you get the feeling of excitement. Okay, I've had some downtime. I'm ready to get back to work, and you gear up for what's going to be a really fun, exciting season.
Yep. Yep.
Then you get that feeling of accomplishment too at the end of the season. You worked hard. You've satisfied so many people. They've had a great summer on the tennis court, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's always a light, at least in the summer. My summer is relatively short. Maybe it's basically July and August.
Lucky you.
Yeah, I am lucky. I get to be as far northeast as I can get. And so it's a short season, and then I'm lucky enough to be as far southeast as I can get too. So I'm lucky to be in both beautiful places. The tough part is, like you said, you're a nomad, so you're settling in. You finally get comfortable with where you're living, and it's like, okay, it's time for me to move on and get ready to go somewhere else. But it's such a luxury to get to live in these beautiful places. It's not like if I take a summer off, is this job going to be waiting for me when I get back? It's not going to be the case. So you have to say to yourself, you know what? I'm so lucky to be doing this, and it's such a beautiful place to live, and the clientele where I am in both places, absolutely outstanding. Which takes
yeah, go ahead.
it takes time too to find that perfect club where you feel like, you know what, I'm the right fit for this place. Because of course I look back at people who I know who've gotten jobs and then they leave those jobs. I think, geez, I thought that would be a great gig. And then, it just turns out that maybe they're not the right fit for that spot. And then they end up finding their spot, and, but it does take time.
It does. And what's funny is you have a different clientele too. I'm guessing, but I'm pretty sure in
Right.
Hillsboro, it's an older clientele, right?
Yeah, right. Especially right now, mid-season. Yeah.
Yeah. And Maine, it's like destination family time. It's like family camp time, right?
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And as you said, I love growing up with the kids. Like
Yeah.
you've been at Seal Harbor. I think this is gonna be your 9th year, maybe 10th year.
My 10th year.
10th
Yeah.
year. Right. So when they were 4, you started, now they're 14. When they were 6,
Right.
now they're driving. It's
Right.
you grow up with
Exactly.
these families.
Right.
So
Exactly.
how do you and that keeps it exciting because you're going to a different type of demographic. You have a different challenge in the winter with the older demographic, different kind of clinic, different kind of drill, different kind of member that's a little more attentive probably, whereas the
Right.
moms and dads have the kids, right?
That's
How do
right.
you set up your program differently? Take us through that. You hire differently probably, and then you set the program up differently for the different demographic.
Yeah, so basically in the summertime, it's obviously we do a lot of all ages, but it's a ton of kids program. So my pros in the summer, I want to get a fun, energetic pro who's going to do a great job with the kids, who can also handle adults, and it's a short season. And then in May, the Hillsboro Club in Pompano Beach, it's more adults. A lot of it every day we got adult clinics, and so you have to just try to find people who you think are going to fit that program. I apologize, I got a jet flying.
That's okay.
Don't
worry.
But basically, and I'm lucky enough now to have pros coming with me to both places.
That's great.
We've got continuity, and I know how hard they're going to work. But it's basically just making sure that you get the right person who can handle adult clinic when you need them to, and obviously they're going to be able to handle the kids. But
kids can be challenging. You can lose your temper with kids.
That is very true. Yeah, you have to have the right demeanor, and you have to be able to have it. You can't have a short fuse.
No.
Yeah.
No. I've been in the business a long time. Only once have I really lost my my mojo with the kids clinic, and I got my hands slapped, my wrist got slapped by the president. And I didn't say anything bad, but they could tell that I had gotten hit in the eye with the ball, and I just it was a bad day.
Well, that's a tough day. That is a tough day.
It is a tough day, and it happens. And we're human beings, and again, if you had a good meal, probably would have been a little better.
Well, right. You can breathe a little deeper and just count to 10 and then go from there. But you don't always have that.
That's right. And And so the clubs are very different in terms of demographic. Are
Right.
they? I have a little anecdote about Seal Harbor.
Yeah.
So I taught this one woman, I don't know, 10 years ago. I think she was at Jupiter Island. And no, she was at Edgartown Yacht Club. And she said, "Oh, Ed, I just went up to the Harbor Club at Seal Harbor. There's a great pro up there named Brett." I said, "Oh, I know Brett.
Oh,
Yeah,
I know
good friend of
exactly
mine."
what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So she goes up there. We're not going to say names. And she goes, "Ed, it's a different thing up there." I said, "What's going on?" She goes, "Everyone just stands around the club and watches you play tennis." I
Right.
said, "Really?" And she
Yeah.
said, "There's not much else to do." So,
True.
yeah, so take me through a day up there because you're really the center of attention, Brett. I mean, first of all, you run the program. You're, the director.
Right.
But again, people just kind of eat there, hang out, watch the tennis.
Right.
How do you set yourself up for that not to make a mistake?
Well, you're especially in the very beginning, the first couple of years. I can't tell you the gallery I had with every single lesson I was doing and every single clinic. So you're on the hot seat for every single ball that you're feeding and every single word that's coming out of your mouth. And obviously over the years, when the people they learn to trust you. That the gallery dissipates a little bit, or at least it backs off the edge of the fence. But people, it's all picnic tables. It's a beautiful place, very low key. Membership is outstanding, but they're always there. They're always watching, and but it's very social. I put myself position myself on the court right next to the pro shop. I can see everyone going in and out. I'm acknowledging everyone who comes on property that looks my way.
Have to.
Yeah, exactly. You have to, and you just want them to know, hey, I know you're here. If you're today, basically when I wave to them, they know if I need anything, I can go to Brett. He'll set me up. But you're right. It's very much, there's a yacht club right around the corner that's separate from the Harbor Club. But
Mm-hmm.
basically, the kids go sailing all morning long, and then they ride their bikes over, or they get a quick ride over. They have a quick lunch at the snack bar at the Harbor Club, and then we're doing tennis in the afternoon. And they're coming over with their parents a lot of the time. The parents are watching the junior clinics. There's a lot of interaction between what's happening on court and what's happening off court, which just makes it really fun and social. And it's a really, really special spot. It
I'm
is.
glad I'm glad you say that's social because sometimes I cringe when I see the parents watching. I have
Right.
a very similar, my club too. So
Yeah.
Sipcan's very similar. We have a yacht club around the corner. They sail 8 to 11 in the Opties, and then they have like a quick half hour to eat lunch, and then it's camp. Sipacan, they come over,
That's right.
not a camp, but
Right.
it's and they
Right.
come over on their bikes. They never put the bikes in the rack. They just drop them, run onto the courts, and and and, and the parents come and watch. And a friend of mine, Magnus Gustafson, I'm sure you know Magnus.
Yeah.
Yeah, he told me, Ed, and I started this job late in life. This is my second career. He said, "Ed, you're going to be good at this." I said, "Why?" Because he said, "You're a showman." And I try not to be a big showman, but you are, and you are too, Brett, when you're on that court and you've got that gallery.
Right. There's always somebody watching. And you know what? I get people who, older couples, they'll come and they'll sit and they'll just watch my lessons. And they're saying, geez, Brett, you should be charging a fee for my seat right here because I'm picking up so many tips. And that's part of the reason that I do it is obviously my main focus is the person who's across the net from me. But the information that you're sending out, it's valuable to everyone who wants to sit around and listen. And, whether you could be out there with a kid and half the time when this older couple is sitting there watching, they're watching me out there with a 6-year-old girl,
Right.
but we're having fun and the girl's engaged and but they're like, that's a pretty interesting point you mentioned, to little Susie over there. And it's just fun to get and also get the intergenerational. That's one of the other things that I really enjoy about that is after the first few years, when you start to realize what grandkid belongs to what grandparent, which belongs to which uncle and aunt, it's just fun once you start to figure out that whole family dynamic and how
The
it's all.
club tree. I call it the club tree.
Yeah, the club tree. It's so true because it just first of all makes the communication so much easier, in my opinion. When you're trying to get a hold of somebody and you're brand new, you're just all you can do is pinpoint that one person. But when you're been there for a few years and you got that club tree on figured out, you can easily open up the lines of communication to get a message delivered, which is really helpful.
What scares me sometimes, and this happened at Edgartown. This is where I learned. I'm Paul Pertilli, who I too. I even my mentor. I would sit there with him doing like we'd play doubles, right, with an older couple,
Right.
and they've been doing it for years, right? So you do this, and Paul gives you a little coaching your first day, saying don't hit it too far, don't hit it too hard. We've all done that.
Yeah.
But then you have another couple watching that's maybe slightly older. And what they're doing is they're comparing the last 3 pros that Paul's had to you.
Right, right.
And you
True.
think back, I remember the days when Joe was the pro here, whatever.
Right.
And it's very nerve-wracking. It's
It is.
because you're always being compared until, as you said, the galleries were huge until they started to trust you. Then they just
Sure.
come for the advice.
Right. It's true. I mean, I'm down here now at Hillsboro, and two directors before me was a woman named Doris Hart. And if you've heard of Doris Hart, I mean, she's got her own Spalding autograph racket. I mean, she's a legend. She basically won multiple Grand Slam championships, but she won Wimbledon singles, doubles, and mixed doubles all in the same day one time.
Wow.
You
Back in
know,
the day.
back in the day. And so she was the pro at Hillsboro for 28 years. And then, Stephan Laporte took over with his wife, Barbara. And they were there for 28 years, and then here comes me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be tough shoes to fill, and you do your best to fill them. And, obviously, but you do get that. You say, oh gosh, this is what we used to happen here. And you're thinking, gosh, I mean, is that better or worse? You do worry, but you eventually find your way. You find the program that works for what's going on there now. But you got to have a ton of respect for the people who were there before you, who got the program to where it is today, and the excitement, because there's so many other things that people could be doing. But the
Yeah.
people there before you, laying down the groundwork and building that program, it's pretty special to be a part of when you're really, a part of history for such a special spot, like the private clubs that we get to be at.
Just for the podcast listener, Stephan Laporte is a big name. He was at 28 years at Hillsboro. He just retired last year from the Maidstone Club in Long Island. So he's director of tennis at two of the biggest clubs probably in the country.
Right.
And Brett's taken half that job at Hillsboro. So
Right.
well done, Brett. Hey,
Right.
when you're hiring, and this is becoming, I think post-COVID, it's becoming a really good question of directors. When you're hiring, what are the characteristics you're looking for? Are you looking for a good player? Are you looking for a good motivator? Are you looking for I call it, you said, a high energy, I say quote unquote knucklehead who's going to be my junior leader, teach the
Right. Right.
pros, the kids. What are you looking for? I'm sure it's different between the two clubs, but
Right.
what are you looking for in when you sit in that interview and interview a candidate?
Somebody who's going to be just engaging with other people. We're in the people business, so it's a matter of someone who's going to be able to, welcome their lesson, work a little dialogue, learn to get to know them, and you really you got to figure out someone who's going to be also reliable. Someone, when I'm asking references, I say, is this person going to show up on time? Can I count on this person to be there day in and day out? And then professional appearance. I mean, you're only as good as your last lesson. So if I show up all disheveled, and I'm not looking like a pro, I might give a good lesson, but they'll say, you see, he looked a little wrinkled when he showed up, or, I mean, those things, they matter. And so professional appearance, someone who's going to be really engaging, and someone who's going to be reliable, and I mean, high energy. High energy is great because it helps you get through the day. The days are long.
Yep.
Sometimes, people don't want to necessarily be out there. The kids who are sort of signed up by their parents, but if you have high energy and all of a sudden the kids, catches the bug, it's a nice feeling.
Yeah, I would think that for Hillsboro, you'd have to have pros. I know a couple of them that are probably slightly more mature, because they're dealing mainly with adults, right? So they have to really carry on an adult conversation.
That's right. Yeah, these people are very educated. They're a lot of them are, I mean, it's the top 1% of the population. I mean, they've worked hard to get to the opportunities that they have now. And you have to be knowing what's going on in the world. You got to be up to date with current events, things like that. And at the same time, you want to sort of try to find the balance between having those conversations, but also leaving all that stuff behind and saying, okay, here we are right now, you and I, let's work on that, that strategy that we want to work on, or let's work on your lob, or whatever you want to work on. This is their time to relax. They've worked so hard to get this opportunity to be on the court with me. And it's, first of all, it's flattering to know that these people who are, have done so much in their life, that they want to take a few minutes out of like an hour out of their day and come hang out with me and work on their game. It's humbling, it's outstanding, and it's a great feeling. But it's
well said. I like that. It's humbling. It is.
It is.
Some of these people are, power people.
Yeah, you think about some of the boardrooms that these people have sat in, or some of the sports teams that these people are running or whatever it is. I mean, these people are, you know, we're very lucky to be our network, as you know. I mean, our network is pretty impressive compared, you know, I mean, we're just, you know, everyone used to say to me when I was younger, hey, when are you going to get a real job? And I think to myself, geez, you know, I'm loving what I'm doing, you know, I'm doing pretty well, you know, and, you know, and I don't like to talk about all the people that I'm coaching all the time, but we get to be out there with some very impressive people, captains of industry, you know, people who are, I mean, help build this country. And, you know, every single day I come out and I say, hey, Bob, you know, I don't, you know, I don't call him, you know, Mr. So-and-so. I say, hey, Bob, let's work on this, or, you know, let's work on that. And
Yeah.
I think they appreciate that. They appreciate the fact that they're just a regular person for a couple hours and they're going to come here and they're going to work on something that they love. And, you know, we're lucky to do it.
Yeah, I've had a couple of incidents where it's so much funny because you're A, not expecting something, and B, expecting something. So I've been, and I won't use where
Right.
it was, but you know, I showed up for my, well, it was Edgartown, my first day. It's raining, it's kind of cold and gray. It's early May,
That can
late
happen.
May. It's still
Yeah,
still
yeah.
cold, right? Even
Yeah,
Memorial
right.
Day. And this gentleman comes in, and I was the only one in the building. He goes, "Hey, I want to hit some balls." I said, "Okay."
Yeah.
I said, "But it's kind of drizzly." He said, "That's okay. I'm a former SEAL. I just did my wind sprints." And he's about 70, you
Right.
know, and he comes in his old Defender, like a knockdown old Defender. It's like from the 50s,
Right.
and we hit balls, and he's a good player,
Yeah.
and and he never introduced himself. And you know, it was my first day. I was nervous. I should have said, "Hi, I'm Ed Shanaphy. I'm new."
Right.
And I made a nice conversation with him. I said, you know, I'm not used to this weather. I'm from Florida. He's
Right.
like, let's hit some balls, right? So we just hit
Right.
balls. He was very quiet. And
Right.
on the way out, I said, hey, sir, I still didn't know his name.
Right.
And no one's still in the building. It's still Memorial Day weekend. No one's around yet.
Right.
I said, I got to build this lesson, and I don't know who you are, and I can't say the last name, but it's a presidential family.
Right. 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 There you go.
You know,
Exactly.
yeah, I'm like, okay, Mr. So and so, it's very nice to meet you. Yeah,
Right.
just call me by my first name. I'm like,
Right. It's true. I mean, and not to mention when he was a SEAL, it's not like he had scuba gear back then. They said, here's a snorkel, here's some fins, go do it. You know, the guy's tough as nails. And, you know, he's
yeah,
coming out. And so he's like a little mist. Are you kidding me? I used to swim miles, you
this
know,
is nothing.
in the dark, you
I
know.
met with his, yeah. And it was
Right.
funny
Yeah.
because about an hour later, Paul, my director, walks in. I said, "Oh, I just met Mr. So and so. Welcome to Edgartown, Ed. Welcome."
Right. There you go. Exactly. Yeah. Well, exactly. You know, people tell you you're going to see a lot of them. Or, you know, yeah, keep an eye on, you know, he'll show up at the random times. You got to be
That's
ready.
right. I've
And
learned a
that's
lot in my 14 years since then. I'd actually shake my hand, you know, offer my hand, offer my name, so he could tell me who he was, you know, before the lesson.
course. Yeah, but you know what? Now, when he goes to a cocktail party and he says, "Oh, I'm at Edgartown Yacht Club," and they say, "Oh, you must know Ed Shanaphy," you know,
Yeah,
and
exactly,
it's like, oh, okay,
exactly. It's
and
funny.
it's funny that can happen, you know.
So fast.
Yeah.
So you said something very interesting early on in the podcast, which you said, "Hey, you know, I take the court next to the pro shop, so I can see everything, right?"
Right.
Which is really hard for you and me to do. I do the same thing. Paul does the same thing at Edgartown. You know,
Right.
you're trying to teach, and you've got one eye going out to make sure
Totally.
there's no fires going on, right? And you know how it is, and you're giving 100% to your lesson, and you're giving 10% there all day long.
Right.
Do you now, as you get older, and I'm sure you hire better, do you take yourself off the court anymore? Do you limit your hours at either club, or do you think about that? Say, I got to be off the court at this time for this person, or how does
You
that work
know,
for you?
I love being on the court, so I try to stay out there because I'm not going to be able to do it forever. But I
Hmm.
try to stay fit. I try to stay healthy. I try to be active. I just love being out there, moving around. But I do dial it back a little bit. I mean, I now, you know, give myself a little bit more time at lunch to you know, just button up anything that happened in the morning, and maybe, you know, rackets are starting to pile up. I might crank out a couple of rackets midday just to help, you know, get out of there a little bit earlier, you know, in the evening. But I'm generally out there, you know, a decent amount of time, again, because I love it. But I also have to have the right people in place. If you don't have the right people in place, you have to make sure that you're able to do all the administrative and the you know, balancing the pro shop and just being the glue of the whole operation. But now I've been down here. I'm lucky at Hillsboro. I've got everyone in my shop is returning staff members. They
That's
work well
fantastic.
together. Somebody can't be there, that amongst themselves they get together and they say, "Hey, don't worry, I can cover that shift." They're outstanding. Maine is great too. I'm lucky enough. I mean, a lot of the times I'll have members' kids work in my pro shop, and these kids have been growing up in the pro shop. My pro shop is a total hangout, which I love, but I also,
Same thing.
yeah, I mean, when that's what you want. You want these kids having a safe place where they can hang out, be kids. Now, if it gets out of hand and it gets a little loud in there, I'll say, okay, everybody out. Uh,
Exactly. Yeah.
but and I have I'm a little bit closer to the shop there, so I have a little bit more. If I can sense it getting a little wild, I can the window's always open right there. I can yell at my shop staff, hey, clear it out over there.
Yeah, there's no AC up there, right? So the windows are open.
That's right.
Going through. Yeah, you can, hey, answer that phone.
Right, exactly. That's right, exactly. Yeah, but down here at Hillsboro, where like you said, we have the clientele's a little bit more mature, so it's a little bit easier to well, I need to have good staff in there, and we do, and everyone's on the same page. And Seal Harbor, I get kids who have grown up in the shop. They've seen me answer the phone. They've seen me book lessons. They've seen me help people with the clothing. They know they've been shopping in that pro shop since, like you said, since they were 4 years old. They know where the men's gear is. They know where the women's gear is.
That's great, because storage of the gear is really hard. You have to teach these kids. I've actually hired one person to come in from 8 to 12 just to run the clothing, because you never know where the clothes are. Like, people put them out, re-rack them. We can't rack everything, right? So it's hard.
Right.
That's the hard part.
You miss sales, and you're thinking, oh God, the shirts are right here, and but then
I found the large.
Right, exactly. That happens all the time. And that's something that is a challenge. That's a big challenge. Is the inventory. I mean, at my club, the dress code is all white. So you know what? If it doesn't sell that year, you know what? It'll sell next year. You put it on sale for the next season or something like that. And I'm also lucky that if I don't have things logoed, I can bring them between clubs.
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah, talking about kids, going back to the shop, that's half the fun. You're the Pied Piper.
Right.
I remember during COVID, we had to limit the number of people in the shop to one, and there were no kids allowed in the shop, right? So I remember one of the kids, he was about 14, he's now about 16. He's actually gonna be working at the club this summer.
Yeah.
He came in, and after COVID last summer, at the beginning of last summer, he came in and he saw this sign, no kids in the shop. He ripped it down. He's like, I can't wait to get back in there.
Right. It's true. I mean, they come in, they have so much fun in there. And at Seal Harbor, we do a great job. They've done an amazing job throughout the history of the club of taking photographs. And every year, we do a big banner. This member does a great job. He takes so many photos, and he works with his company to put a big banner. It's like one of those old school poster boards.
I love those. It's like a history book.
Exactly. And so every year we get 20 or 30 photographs, and it just adds to the the history of the place. But half those pictures are from kids just hanging out around and in the tennis shop.
Yeah.
It's great.
So we did a similar thing. Sipican, we have a stage. It's a big old casino building, massive one building, huge room with a stage. And my retail was on the stage, and I kind of liked it there. But then they had this history idea of, like, Stan Smith has played there, Liz Whiteman has played there. I mean, we've had Rod Laver there.
Right.
So they did a history tribute to the club, and I had to move my retail. And I was not a happy camper, but I did. Yeah. And the history is great, because now we've got pictures from when I've been there. I mean, it's only 7 years, but it's 7 years ago. I look younger or fitter, and everyone else does too.
Right.
But it's a fun piece of history. And so now I've done the shop differently. I've got like palm trees outlining it on the big floor, so the bridge players don't get that annoyed with the retail out there, because we share the space with the club bridge players. But it's a tradition, and you gotta love it. And it only happens in New England in the summer.
It's really true. I mean, it's just a great thing to be a part of. And I mean, like you said, you're that little window where you used to have the pro shop on up on the stage, and that was a moment in history. Oh gosh, remember when it was up on the stage? Gosh,
people were asking, when's it going back? I'm like, I don't think it's going back this year.
Right, exactly. And the change is tough. The change is tough. We did that. We had some, our pro shop in Seal Harbor's very old building. It's not that big, and they redid the inside of it, and it looks beautiful. But it's still, it's not any bigger. But it just, oh gosh, what'd you do with all the photos? I said, well, hang on, before you get upset, I didn't take all the photos down. We used to have photos all over all the walls, on the ceiling. We had just photographs that basically stapled in. And so we got, geez, before this place, some of them are fading from the weather or things like that. And so we said, so we digitized every single photo. And so now they have that in their archives. And, now we got the poster boards, which is just cleaner.
Yeah, a little neater.
Yeah, which is, it's just more manageable, but the people love it. But they come in, especially when they haven't been there for, what happened to the pictures? Don't worry, they're right over there. Oh, okay, whew,
Speaking about change, you bring me on to my next question, which is great. What's working? When you have a program, Hillsboro's not. Hillsboro probably doesn't change too much, kind of like Jupiter Island, but I think up north we have to reinvent the wheel every few years with a program. Cardio tennis goes to live ball, goes to kids programs, change, new ideas. What are you doing new this year? What didn't work over the last couple of years? COVID threw in a couple of wrenches in there too, because we were over exaggerated in where we were. Those weren't true numbers. What are you changing this year, and why?
We basically, for the adults, we've added when we're busy. This is during peak times when we got a lot of people in house and there's a huge demand to get on the court. We've added cardio clinic every single day. Now that they've allowed me to have a bigger staff, we can get 36 people out for cardio every morning at 9 o'clock. We do an 11 o'clock adult drills and strategy clinic where we can get, 24 people on the court. And then for the adults also, we finish in the evening with a 105 clinic, which is similar to the live ball. And, then we can get up to, 30 or 40 people. And so that has been a huge hit. And people love that. Some of the stuff that's fading is, in my opinion, some of the round robins, some of the tournaments. It's tough. We just don't have as many people getting together to play an afternoon of doubles. And don't get me wrong, it happens all the time, but it's not like it used to be where every single person was playing doubles for 2 hours a day. People are busier now, I think. They come on the court, they know, okay, I'm on the court from 9 to 10, and then I can go do X, what I have to do after that. And so for us, obviously getting volume on the court when you're busy is the most top priority. And that was something that we struggled with in the past. I only had myself and 3 assistants at Hillsboro. And our biggest issue was that we had a wait list for clinics. And that's just painful because you're doing such a good job, but then you still can't satisfy everybody. But now the club has allowed me to bring in bigger staff. And I did a good job of keeping all the court sheets where people are reserving tennis courts for doubles play or for regular match play. And you could see that those court sheets were light. But guess what was heavy, and guess what we had a wait list for was all the clinics. So they said, you're right, we don't need all the courts for open play. What we need is to get a couple more pros in there where you can now alleviate those wait lists and satisfy more people. And since we've done that, that has been a huge help to myself. And you're letting so few people down because the wait list that was 12 people long might be 1 or 2 people. In which case you can say, hey, don't forget we offer the 11 o'clock drills too. There might be a spot there. Oh yeah, I'll just hop in that. Thank you. And so that has been a huge help.
Yeah, wait lists are tough. When I took over Sipican 7 years ago, they were like, "Oh, I got to get my kid in February." I said, "Why?" Well, the wait list will show up. I'm like, "What wait list for kids junior?" Yeah, they're allowed, 2 courts and 8 kids a court, so 16, and we'd have 40 for the group. And I'm like, "Well, that's not gonna." So I went straight to the board. I said, "If I'm gonna have a wait list, we're gonna take more courts." Right. I said, but I had to do it genteelly. I had to you can't just go and demand. These people own the club, and it's a big change. Going back to change, right?
Right.
So I kept showing them the wait list, saying, "Look, they got another 4 kids who got a wait list. Can we go to 3 courts?" So now at like noon, we have all 8 courts. All 8 courts are junior, right? And the kids love it. It's like play day. And on Sundays, it used to be, and I got to be careful because the men are still there, the men's Sunday morning round robin. But those, as you said, the round robin's gotten smaller. It used to be 28, 24. Now it's down to 16. So it's 4 courts there. And I've moved the clinic on the Sunday mornings to just finish 10 minutes before the men start. And that's our Sunday morning cardio. And it's couples, it's moms and dads getting out before the kids wake up on a Sunday. And we're packed. We got, 32 on 4 courts. Yeah. And same thing. And Thursday night we do this year. I'm changing this. This is a change I'm doing. I'm calling because we're calling it live ball lavash. I don't know if you know lavash. It's a feeding game with singles. It's fun, and doubles. Live ball lavash and libations. It's gonna be fun.
There you go. That's good.
I like it. So a little change. So yes, and let me take you back to one of your comments. I'm having the same problem, so I'm happy to hear that I'm not alone. This is great to talk to you. Tournaments are down. Tournament play is down. What do you think's behind that? I can't put my finger on it.
Me either. You know, when I first got to Hillsboro, the draws were big. You know, we'd have 12 teams, 16 players for singles. We'd have, people playing in men's, mixed, and singles, or whatever. And so they were jammed. For whatever reason. I mean, COVID hurt too. I think at least it hurt us down here. But I think it's just a matter of the amount of time it takes and the commitment. Some of the tournaments that we're running that are a little bit more successful are just sort of like a morning event from 9 to noon, and then we got a winner by the end, so people can schedule other things. They can come play a morning of tennis. Great. We had a great time. We played a ton of tennis, but now I can go hiking, or now I can go boating. I can do the stuff that I want to do. That doesn't take me, 3, 4, or 5 days, where I have to be sort of on hold, waiting to see who might play next, and things like that.
Yeah, I think
More
the weekend
program.
member guest is kind of a thing of the past, where it
Yeah.
takes all weekend. I get
Right.
a call, literally, I'll get a call from, maybe if I do say a ladies member guest or a ladies doubles, and you're exactly mimicking what I've done.
Yeah.
They'll say, "Hey Ed, the finals got to be done. If I'm gonna, one of my bear players will call, finals got to be done by 1:15. I got to be out. I got
Right.
1:30 out. The wind picks up. I got to be on the sailboat by 1:30
Right.
on my
Right.
husband."
It's true.
And so I'm sitting there, and we have a clinic from 8 to 9. That if I cancel that, we've got 32 people doing 105 on Saturday morning, right? So then
Right.
at 9, I jump off the court, I throw up the draw, and I
Yeah.
say, "Quick, we got to be off by 1 o'clock."
Right. It's true.
And it's like the fastest tournament of all time. I mean, there's no downtime. We have
Right.
16 teams. We go, the first round is like a fast 5,
Yeah.
no ad. Second
Right.
round is like a regular set, no ad. Tiebreak at 5-all.
Yeah.
It's
There you
and,
go.
and and we'll do a compass draw so that everyone gets, if we get it to 16, we'll do a compass
Right.
draw.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm glad I'm not alone, and you're fighting the same problems.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll do round robin format. You play every team in your flight, and then depending on how much time we have or how many teams there are, we'll say, okay, top 2 teams are now into the semifinals from each flight, and then we'll play a longer match for the final, because then you get everyone still hanging out watching, and then you got sort of an exciting grand finale match that people are playing for the
Well, everyone
tournament.
stays and watches at your club anyhow, but
Right. Yeah. They're
uh,
there.
no,
Exactly.
just and just for other directors listening, when you take those top 2 teams from each of the 4 flights, get ready for the argument about seeding, because
All right.
I go,
Exactly.
top teams are 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yeah, but why are they 1? That's
Right.
a different flight, Ed. I'm like, doesn't matter.
So for me, what I do is I do total games won.
Is that what you do? Total games won?
Okay, yeah, because they won more games than you, or you might be tied, but in head to head, hey, they beat you in head to head, so they get the top seed. Which as long as you're confident with the delivery, usually you'll be all right.
I have this one format I do for we do a charity tournament, and I stole this from Sam Garcia, who's a great director of Quail Valley. And you can get a tie in a 4-way, with 4 teams. You can get a tie in with sets. We play quick 2 out of 3 sets fast, and if you're tied all the way through, like number of games, least games lost. It's a great way to
Right, exactly. This game's
the
lost.
fewest
That's right.
games lost. Yeah. Final question for you, Brett. After the seeding committee,
Yeah.
what what's your greatest challenge coming up, do you think, in the next 3 years for you personally? What do you want to do? Where do you want to be? And how are you going to reach what you want to do? I think you're doing what you want to do, but how are you
Yeah.
going to make it even better in 3 years?
That's a great question. I'm really happy. I'm lucky to do what I do. I love both clubs that I'm at. I found a balance between a lot of work but a lot of downtime. I've been able to travel. I got to go to the French Open last year, which has been a bucket list thing for me forever. And I'm going to sort of ride this one out for a little while, Ed, before I
That's
change
okay.
too much, because things are going well. I got to go to the French Open. I've become very close with a big group that goes to the Labor Cup. And so I've been able to be a part of that. So this year I'm scheduled to go to Berlin with that group. And,
Fun.
I'm not going to change too much. I mean, obviously it's a physical job that you do. And I try in the downtime to try to work on my fitness, so I'm ready for the next season coming up, but I'm also trying to mix in more travel. I've been able to expand my network on the West Coast quite a bit more with some fun activities that I've been invited to out in Palm Springs twice a year. And, things are going well.
That's great.
I'm sort of on the go a lot, but you know what? I won't be able to be on the go forever. So I'm going to enjoy it while it's lasting. The program here at Hillsboro is thriving. People are really happy. We're working hard. We got a great staff, and same at the Harbor Club. I mean, we got a great clientele there. The membership is outstanding. Tennis is alive and well at both places. And I'm just going to keep riding it for a little longer. And if I feel the need for a change, maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll address that when I get to that time. But for right now, things are great. I'm sitting right here on my balcony overlooking the Atlantic Ocean.
Beautiful.
Yeah, you know what? Life is good.
There you go. For the pros out there that are listening, and anybody who's in a job, keep your relationships, because he's being very modest here, Brett, about how he got over to the Laver Cup and all that. We're not going to talk about names, but you get wonderful lifelong relationships with wonderful people who are big people, and it's a wonderful relationship to have, and we're in service to those people, and most of them are happy to serve us back.
Yeah. They give us a lot of respect, because they you have to prove yourself, but once you prove yourself to them, they really respect you and they appreciate their time with you. And it's like, me being on this podcast with you. You and I have hit it off ever since day one when we met in the Jupiter Island Tennis Shop. But it's a great business to be in.
Thanks for coming on the podcast. Great to have you here, Brett, and good luck this summer.
Ed, thanks so much. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to seeing you soon.